Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 film Maxxxine, and yes, it is the third film to come out in this trilogy, and it is also, story-wise, the third film. So the first one, X, is actually the middle film, and then Pearl was the prequel, and now Maxxxine is the sequel to X, which I think it's an interesting way to do that. It's just like put out a movie and then do a prequel and a sequel around it. I'd be interested to see that being done more. So this one in particular, I liked X a decent amount. Didn't really like Pearl a whole lot. And I like Maxxxine again. Maxxxine was actually kind of close to X for me. So X and Maxxxine make the franchise worth it for me. All right, written and directed by Ty West, who did X, Pearl, The House of the Devil, which I really like, Sacrament, Roost, In a Valley of Violence, Trigger Man, and a lot of episodes of TV shows. I rented this through Fandango at home for $10.59 because they had a special going on for it. I think that's pretty good right there. You know, certainly less than you're going to pay to go to the theater. Quick synopsis. This takes place after the events of the film X and focuses on the character Maxxxine from the film X and kind of where her life goes after the events of that film. And she's in Hollywood. She's still doing porn, but she's trying to get out and become a scream queen, basically. Meanwhile, the backdrop, because it's set in the 80s, there's the Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, is out killing people. And at the same time, there's someone else who's killing people that Maxxxine knows, who's trying to make the victims look like the Night Stalker. So it's this kind of question of who's coming after Maxxxine or who's around Maxxxine killing all these people and why. So that's the big question. And I will say this film is quite Giallo inspired, which may be one of the reasons I enjoy it so much, because I'm a huge Giallo fan. So I love all the Giallo inspiration you end up seeing in this film. Story-wise, of course, because it does have like the black-gloved killer, but also aesthetically with some interesting uses of color and some shots that are very Dario Argento-ish shots. One involving a spiral staircase in particular. Look out for that. Anyway, they do a good job in this film giving you context of the world at the time that it ends up taking place. Not only are they like, okay, it's the 80s and here's the proper costuming, and that you're seeing things on, you know, what's going on with the Night Stalker, all that stuff. It's not just that. They're also showing a bunch of other additional things, including there's a video rental store, which bestow my heart. To see that in any film, a video rental store, I'm all about it. Plus, I'm just big into horror films made now that take place in the 80s, just because, I don't know, it's a great time period to set horror films. You also don't have to deal with the issue of cell phones. That's another great thing for the writing aspect of it. The 80s music that they use in this is great. It makes it a lot of fun from time to time, and it's not just a score that feels 80s. It is actual recognizable songs from the 80s, so people will have a lot of fun with that, me included. Love 80s music. Obviously, can you tell, like, I'm an 80s child. I was born in 81, so, you know. It's shot very well, and it looks grainy. They try and give it that intentional kind of 80s feel, like the video's actually from that time. So, you know, I watched it on 4K TV. It's not going to really look 4K because they're intentionally making it grainy. They're making the quality worse. Don't know exactly how I feel about that. Like, on one side, I think it's kind of cool because they're going for accuracy to make it look from its time period, but at the same time, like, we know it's not, the film itself is not actually from that time period, so I kind of wanted better clarity to it. But, you know, I kind of ended up in the middle on that. I couldn't really decide if it bothered me or not. Mia Goth's accent all over the place for some reason in this film. I don't know if that's something I've said about her before. I like her acting. I think she does a really good job acting, but she kind of grates on my nerves with how she speaks and her accent, and I know people have told me before, like, that's her legitimate accent. I'm sorry, it's just one of those things. It grates against my nerves. It's not something I can help, but her accent's just all over the place in this film, so I think that she doesn't do the best job. Like, at certain times she's sounding American, and at other times she's sounding very British. So it's just very weird. I think they kind of needed to rein that in. There's a pretty wild and funny practical effects scene very early on in the film. It's the first instance of like full on, we're going to show you practical effects. It's wild, it's funny, you'll know what I mean. It takes place in an alleyway. That's what I'm going to say right there. And if you want to talk about it, we can talk spoilers in the comments. Go ahead and do that. Kevin Bacon is in this film, and he is excellent. He's my favorite character in this film, not because of how the character's written, but because of how Kevin Bacon plays this character. Now, that it may not have all been his choice, it may have had a lot of input from Ty West, but he does a great job. He really does a great job in this, and it made me miss seeing Kevin Bacon in films. Like I said before, it becomes very clear in this film it is Giallo inspired. So if you are a Giallo fan to any degree, you will find some interesting things to look at in this and be like, oh yeah, this is kind of making me want to watch old school Giallo films, which it did make me want to do that. The atmosphere is very well created and is maintained very well, because that's one thing. It's one thing to create great atmosphere in a scene or two, but to maintain it throughout the entire film. Ty West, I kind of think, is very masterful at that type of stuff. He's done it in all of his films. I'm just right now just thinking like visuals from The House of the Devil, same type of thing. He creates this very creepy, intense, grimy atmosphere in Maxxxine, and it's just you just feel it. It seeps into everything within the film. And it just stays throughout the entire film. You never lose it at any point, which is wonderful because it keeps you firmly placed, not only in this story and in this world that's being created, but also in a feeling of what's going on. So pretty nice. The ending is pretty solid. I didn't love the ending. I didn't hate the ending. I ended up overall positive, but close to in the middle on the ending. It's solid enough in my opinion. And also, I need to say that there's a lot of kind of meta stuff that ends up getting thrown into this film for people who are into that versus not into that. But this film clearly takes swipes at kind of comedic swipes at religion. So if that's something that's kind of an issue to you, maybe you don't want to watch it. But, it makes sense, seeing as that she's a porn star. They're focusing on a lot of stuff having to do with the porn industry in the 80s. Which, they set up the context very well of all these religious people basically being like, this is terrible, smut is destroying our country. We still have that now for some weird reason. You'll see, and some people who've already seen the film will understand what I'm doing here when I say this. Our society is way too puritanical. So I'll just leave it there. But I did enjoy this film. Out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'm going to go with 3.5 stars. I think it's a pretty solid film. Is it one of the best horror films of the year for me so far? No. Does it crack my top 15 at the moment? Yes. Not my top 10, but top 15. So we'll see where it ends up at the very end of the year. I have a feeling that other things will kind of push it out of the top 15. But, it is what it is. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Go ahead and put it in the comments. Do me a quick favor. Thumbs up on this video if you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm. You can subscribe to my channel. That's your best way to repay me for liking anything I put out, including this video. And you can hit the notification bell button if you want to know when I'm putting up new videos. But regardless, I really do thank you for taking your time to watch this, especially if you're at this point of the video, because most people just drop off well before it. But thank you so much, and until next time, keep it brutal.